Huh. So, here we are at the last episode of the Flashback, episode 4 Bungo Stray Dogs. I'm simultaneously dreading and really looking forward to this episode. I'm looking forward to it because this flashback arc has been amazing and wonderful, and I've not loved Bungo Stray Dogs like I love it now with this flashback and this look into Dazai and Octagawa and Oda, but I'm really sad because I've talked to y'all the last 3 episodes. I know it's coming. I know it's coming, and Oda's gonna die. And I'm not ready for it. He's like my favorite character in this show. I'm getting shorter Wong flashbacks, guys, from Banana Fish, and I'm not looking forward to it. I'm really sad already, and the episode hasn't even started. But this whole look back into the dark era has been so cool. It's been so neat. There's been so much symbolism. There's been so many allegories and metaphors and connections and parallels with characters and their actions and to how they are in the past versus the future. It's just good storytelling. And I'm usually a big fan of flashback arcs with characters because usually your flashbacks, I feel like the mangaka and the authors have free reign to really expand on those characters in meaningful ways that doesn't impact the present story because it's a flashback. Everything that happens in the flashback has already happened. So it's not impacting what's happening now with these characters. It's just things that are motivating them and enriching their character. And I love that. And it's just this flashback arc, these last 3 episodes leading up to this one have been really, really well done. And so I'm really nervous about this episode. I know I've probably talked to y'all in the comments by now. I am recording this a little bit ahead of schedule. One, because I don't want to be spoiled, because that's what I'm afraid of is going to happen in the comments. I don't want to be spoiled, so I'm going to go ahead and do this one early. But also because I just couldn't wait. I could not wait. I had to watch it. As soon as episode 3 got over, I was like, oh, this was like 2 days after. I'm like, I have to do it. I have to watch it now because I want to see what happens. And then I'll take a break and wait a week before going into episode 5. But I told you all I was going to look up Ango Sakaguchi, and I did. I looked him up. He's pretty interesting. Ango, we have our trio. We have Dazai, Oda, and Ango. And Ango being Ango Sakaguchi, his real name was Higo Sakaguchi, and Ango was his pen name. And he was an essayist, a Japanese novelist and essayist, who was born in Niigata and grew up during World War II and gained a lot of his prominence during then. He was associated with the Beria, or Decadent, school, which designated a group of dissolute writers who expressed their perceived aimlessness and identity crisis in post-World War II Japan, which is very understandable. I could imagine a lot of writers and essayists being like, what do we do now that World War II is over? Because so much changed after the World War. So in 1946, he wrote his most famous essay, Darakuran, Discourse on Decadence, which is what his ability is named after, which examined the role of Bushido during the war. It's widely argued that he saw post-war Japan as decadent, yet more truthful than wartime Japan built on illusions like Bushido. The work itself does not make any claims about the meaning of decadence, which is interesting. So yeah, he was the 12th of 13 kids, which is crazy, born in the middle of Japan at war. His father was the president of a newspaper. He was a politician and a poet. And Ango had decided to be a writer once he was 16 and then pursued that, and he lived to be 48. So it says that throughout his career as a student, he studied Indian philosophy and worked as a substitute teacher in a secondary school, and he was very vocal about his opinions, which I think is interesting because Ango's character in the show is not entirely vocal about his opinions. He keeps things pretty close to the vest, so I thought that was a cool reversal. But he wrote a lot of literary pieces. It doesn't mention much about his relationship with Dazai or Oda, unlike Oda's biography that mentions a lot about him and Dazai. So Ango's just kind of part of the trio, but his own person. And then with the Discourse on Decadence, the ability is based on that critique essay. And aside from dissecting the essence of Bushido in post-war Japanese society, Ango argued that a fall into decadence is inherent in humanity, which could help attain a rediscovery to and the salvation of human nature through perseverance in life rather than preservation throughout life. So persevering through hardships rather than trying to preserve the past, I guess, which is interesting. And I guess that kind of ties to his old works as a triple agent, where he's just trying to persevere through everything that's thrown at him rather than try to preserve the past, which is kind of like Dazai. He kind of talks about that in the last episode. He's like, well, maybe one day, if things are different, and Oda kind of cuts him off. So I guess that kind of ties to that. So that's really interesting. Very, very interesting. Interesting look on Ango there. I'm curious to know how that would translate as an ability. So maybe we'll see that happen. I don't know. But the episode's called Bungo Stray Dogs. This episode is the title of the show. I can't imagine it being of much importance. At all, right? I'm not ready. But you know what? We don't have a choice at this point. We just got to do it. It's episodes like these. I'm always afraid to press that play button because then I know there's no going back. We're just gonna do it. So, dear friends, dear fam, hide the onions from me because we're about to start this. So, without further ado, I hope you all enjoy the reaction. But yes, we're about to start episode 3 of season 2 of Bungo Stray Dogs, titled Bungo Stray Dogs, and we are going to start this episode here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. To Oda. Ugh. Whoo, buddy. Man. Okay. It's fine, there's not onions here. No crying. No crying here. Ooh. It's like you knew it was coming, but it still hurt. A lot. Oh. I can't believe I was right about Natsumi. Y'all have no idea. I've recorded these episodes a little bit ahead of time because I've been afraid of spoilers. And when he said his name, I was like, yes! Like, the one time I'm like right about a prediction like that, I was like, oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys. This episode. This whole flashback arc, like, that's based on this light novel, so good. Like, I want to get the light novel now. I want to get it because it's just so good. It's so good. I might get it because I love it. I can't believe that my favorite character in the show's dead. So, there's that. It's fine. There's a lot of other good characters in Bungo Stray Dogs. But Oda was such a wonderful character, and there's still some mysteries from all of this. There's still some things unanswered. And so I'm curious to know if in the present time we will go back to any of those. There's still lots of questions that this episode brings up that were not answered by the end of the episode. So I'm very excited about that because that means we'll probably have this dark era won't be something that is all on its own. It's going to come back and have impact later, which is exciting. But, oh my gosh. This whole, to know me, I love crime noir. I love like jazzy 1920s, like gritty crime thrillers, and the jazz music at the opening of this, the whole thing, it was just chef's kiss. These first 4 episodes have just been amazing, and I love them so much. So much. I love them. So there's that. Going back through this episode, people live to save themselves. I find it very, very cool that Natsumi is the one that wrote the novels. And it all makes sense now because he wrote the books and he said part 3 is the worst of the worst. And he would know because he's the author. So he's kind of like just hurting himself, like some self-loathing there. But I love that he gives Oda the novel at the end. He gives Oda the novel and tore out the last couple of pages and said, you get to rewrite the story. And so that makes me wonder if Natsumi 1 was in a similar position to Dazai and Oda, where Natsume was a killer and he turned things around and decided to be someone that helped the good and that became a good person. if that was, how he was, and he wanted to keep Oda from going down that same pathway. But knowing that Oda was inspired by someone good like Natsumi, and that's what he uses to inspire Dazai, it's like, oh my god. There's so much in this episode. I love it. This opening where he says goodnight to the kids as he's getting his gear all together, where he tells the kids goodnight as he's like strapping on the guns and getting the grenades and everything. Like, that was so darn good. Goodnight, Shinji. And seeing all those orphans that he couldn't save, and Sakura. And then, like, being in that disheveled house, rest in peace. And then just turning around and with the knife and everything. Oh my god. And we didn't get an opening. We didn't really get an opening to this, right? So, going to this ship, man, the rich people like meeting on ships and all this. And I was so caught up in the episode in the moment that I didn't get to hear all this conversation. So I wanted to go back and listen to it again with Ango. And how uncomfortable Ango is next to these two powerhouse people, like the leader of the special division, special ops, and then Mori. Like, he's just standing there, like, sweat rolling down his face, like, oh my god. Again, this is an unofficial meeting. Thank you for inviting me here today. How does it feel to be back in your main job? And it's like, Mori knows everything. He's like, please don't torture our junior staff. Oof, Port Mafia's boss man. My Elise-chan wants ice cream. Are there any good ice cream shops the government workers would recommend? Chief Tanada. So Tanada has a beard similar to Natsumi. I thought maybe they were the same people at first, but I guess they're different. I guess so. Maybe they just guys with goatees. That's a heartwarming topic. So I need to bring back gifts for our officials as well. Like they're just casually talking about getting ice cream and bringing back souvenirs, and Ango's sitting there like just sweating profusely, like, oh my god. And then what does he say there? He says, I bet they'd be more than happy to see your head on a platter. And Mori's like, ah. And then Ango's like sweating, like, if we can proceed to get to the agenda. Like, please don't kill each other in front of me. Oh my god. Amazing. The Gifted Special Operations Division has 2 requests for Ogai Dono of the Port Mafia. First, the Port Mafia will divest themselves of any interest in myself, Sakuji Ango, and will not harm my person. And second, the Port Mafia will dispose Mimic. So Mori's totally fine with letting Ango go. He's like, yeah, sure, Ango, you can have him back. It's fine. Cool. See ya. Bye. But he's like, I don't really want it to get us involved. They're a terrifying group. And it'll depend on the conditions. Like, he's such a manipulator, such a man, like, just like, oh, we'll get rid of him if, you give us what we want. And Tanida looks like he doesn't want to, but he gives them the business permit. And that crooked smile, that little creaky smile that Mori gives is like the creepiest thing ever. But I love it. It's like, oh, like it's the smile of a mastermind and a villain that just got everything he wanted. He's like, oh, we just scored so big, Elise-chan. Like, because yeah. And at the time I was like, what the hell's in the envelope? And I wondered, I'm like, is it a business permit? And he just starts laughing maniacally as the thunder like rolls in. Because that's all he wanted. It's basically the Special Ops Division, the government that controls everything, is ratifying the Mafia being able to conduct business. Like, it was like selling your soul to the devil. Like, they basically gave Mori free reign to operate as the lead of this organization, and for all his gifted members to be able to move and infiltrate and do what they want, and they are permitted to do so. They're managed. It's like, you just gave the devil the keys to the city. You gave the fox the keys to the hen house. It's like, oh my god. And then we cut to Dazai and Oda. And Dazai trying to keep him from going. Because he's like, I don't want you to kill yourself. I don't want you to have that happen. And Oda's like, I know where they are. I got an invitation. And Dazai's trying to convince him otherwise. And he's like, hey, the boss just attended this meeting. It was with the Gifted Division. Like, we were going to have things settled. There's more going on. Like, just don't go by yourself. And Oda's like, nah, I've already decided. It's all over for me. And Dazai just trying to save him. You need to rely on something. It can be anything. You should wait and see what happens next, whatever that is. It'll happen. And then why Dazai joined the Port Mafia? He said, I was hoping there'd be something in it for me. If you place yourself somewhere close to raw emotions, where you're exposed to violence and death, instinct and desire, you can brush against man's true nature. So he's like, I just wanted to live. I thought that being in this Port Mafia, it would give me a reason to live doing this work. And that makes a lot of sense. And that makes sense why he was so harsh to Akutagawa, because he wanted Akutagawa to see, he's like, look, if you're in the Port Mafia, you can establish something, you can make a name for yourself, and you can have a reason to belong and a reason to live, even if it's committing violence and being in these raw, intense situations. And so he wanted Akutagawa to survive and move up the ranks like he did, because he's like, this will give you a sense of purpose and belonging and a reason to live. And by the end of this episode, Oda's like, this isn't the right way that you're going about it. And then Oda tells him what he wanted to become. And he's like, I thought I'd lose my right to become a writer if I killed again. And that's why I stopped. And then he's like, Odasaku. He's like, but that's all over. And I love that parallel, the lightning striking as Dazai reaches for Oda. It's such a parallel from when Oda reached for Dazai like 2 episodes ago, when Dazai was moving up the ranks and leaving him behind. And now the situation's reversed. Except Oda's not leaving him behind to move up the ranks. He's leaving him behind to basically sacrifice himself. And then Oda just calmly walking. And it's such a parallel when the last episode we saw him walking with the candy the other way, and it was sunny and you could see the lake view and the island and everything. And now it's reversed and he's in the rain and it's cold, damp, and gloomy. And it's, and then he runs into Rampo. And Rampo, I love that Rampo's like, oh, hey, I'm a detective. And he's like, let me show you my ability. But he doesn't do the cool thing, right? He just is using his ability, and Oda's like, whatever. But Rampo, being still a good detective, is like, I know where you're going, and you're going to die. And Oda's like, yeah, I already know. And it's, I love that little cameo. That was so wonderful to see him like that. And then Dazai warned Akutagawa. He's like, if you make Oda mad, he has an ability that will let him just wreak havoc on anyone if you get in his way. And it's like, yep, that's exactly what just happened. Ugh. Damn it. Nope. Not cool. Not cool, friends. And then he goes in, and the moment where he shoots the guy in the face, that's when I'm like, oh, you've just given up on all your ideals. So we go back to the towers, and I like that the president, like Mori, the boss, has his tea set out for himself, and he wasn't expecting Dazai to come, which is kind of hilarious. He just has this one chair in the middle of this giant room looking out over the sunset, and Dazai coming to ask to go to organize a gifted squad to save Odasaku. And Mori's like, sure, go right ahead, why? And then Dazai saying that he's doing reconnaissance for forcing himself to mimic headquarters. And if we do nothing, he'll die and we'll lose. And at first he says we'll lose a valuable gifted agent. Like, he's doing this the smart way, saying, oh, hey, this is important. We should save one of our own. And then Mori's like, I doubt Oda-kun wants to be saved by anybody. And he's like, what do you think about that? Dazai-kun, the leader of an organization, is the pinnacle of that organization. And I love this line here. And at the same time, he is its slave. The leader must be more than willing to commit any atrocity in order to ensure the organization's survival. And Dazai realizes in that moment, and what Mori's saying is not wrong. He's like, if you're going to be the leader of an organization, you've got to be willing to make that organization survive, no matter what. And you've got to be willing to do these dirty deeds and do the deeds that no one else wants to do to make sure that that stays, there. And then Oda sees the envelope with the gifted, and he knows that And then he starts to piece everything together. And oh, that reveal, the reveal of everything with Mori, that this was all Mori's doings. The whole kit and caboodle. He wanted the gifted business permit, and he's like, how can I get it? Well, and very much like Dazai, he manipulates. And we get to this whole showdown between Oda and Gide, of them together. And the gifted special ops division, Dazai's like, you're the one controlling the conflict between the three groups. He's like, you invited Mimic here. You created this situation where the gifted special ops had to get involved, and you used Ango as the triple agent to set everything up, to make it all work out, and you knew Oda had an ability, and it all makes sense. Like, he called Oda in his office to talk about Dazai, to talk about their relationship. Like, you set Oda up to be your servant, to be your soldier in all of this, because you knew of his ability and how it could crush Mimic. And you negotiated and did this whole thing to get what you wanted. And he's just sitting there with his hands like this, like just maniacally. And Dazai is so mad. Like, his eyes are just so blank. He's like, you did this. You organized this whole thing to use my friend. And that fight between the two of them were so cool. But I'll be honest, half the people using machine guns in this show are stormtrooper level of shooting. They cannot shoot for shit. Like, come on. You couldn't hit them. You couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Like, come on. And then these guys having their abilities. That's so cool. And so Dazai's like, you did this whole thing to incite the special ops into taking action. And Mori's like, yes, and we got what we needed. Now we have the permit. He's like, the government has, for all practical purposes, ratified our illegal activities. Like, we can do whatever we want now, and we have permission. Like, I got what I wanted. And he said the troublesome aggressors will be taken care of by Oda-kun with his life. He's like, so we win. We get what we want. The aggressors are gone, and all it cost us was one man. That's a pretty good plan. And he says, this is a glorious victory for us, and yet why are you so angry? And Dazai's like, you're the one who let Mimic know about it. Because I wondered, I was like, how did Mimic know about the orphans? But I was like, well, they've got people on the inside. They probably just found out through tapping various resources. Mori let him know. Mori told them exactly where to go to get Oda riled up. You did it so you could conquer the Mimic's leader with Odasaku, the only gifted agent who could be his match. And Dazai's like, I've heard enough. And then Mori, the one time Mori gets serious, he's like, you need to stay. And Dazai's like, nope, I'm leaving because you won't gain anything from me going. And he's not wrong. There may be nothing to gain by my actions. But there's one reason I still will go. Because he's a friend. And it's like, oh, that soft look by Dazai. Ugh. God. And then, yeah. And they go, and we get the Natsumi reveal. That you'll understand that people live to save themselves. You'll understand that at the moment of your death. Yeah. It's like he lived to try to, like, make up for his past sins. To try to, like, to try to redeem his past killing and his sins by doing good in his life. And it's like, oh my God. And that's what he tells Dazai. He's like, you need to go forward and try to save people. And that's the only way you're going to be able to save yourself is by helping others. And then the fact that Natsumi gave him the other book. And they both killed and shot each other. And of course Dazai shows up like 5 seconds too late. Of course he does. Of course he does. And like, this is the most tender, beautiful scene of him holding Oda and Oda like gripping his hair and like clutching his hair. It's like, and like Miyano Mamoru, his voice acting in this scene is so good, and the animation of Dazai's like expressions and Oda holding his head in his hands. He's like, you told me the reason you might find a reason to live is if you lived in a world of violence and bloodshed. He's like, I did, yeah. But who cares what I said now? He's like, you won't find it. It's like, you know that already. And then he says, whether you're on the side who kills people or the side who saves people, nothing beyond what you would expect will appear. He's like, you can look to try to like get rid of all this loneliness and isolation. He's like, but killing people and saving people isn't going to do it alone. Like, that's not going to solve your problems. You'll wander the darkness for eternity if you try to do that. Like, you can't find something to fill that hole through killing or saving. But if you have the choice, and Dazai's like, what should I do? He's like, be on the side that saves people. He's like, if both sides are the same, become a good man. Save the weak and protect the damn orphans. It's like, ugh! Because that changes Dazai's whole perspective in that moment. He's like, whether you follow a path of righteousness or a path of bloodshed, it's not going to matter. Your issues are still going to be there. Like, you can't rely on others to save you. He's like, that's not going to work. He's like, you have to live to save yourself. And if you're going to do that, then you might as well help others too. Because that's going to be the more rewarding thing to do. He's like, fight to save people and save the orphans. The Bungo Stray Dogs. And that's what Dazai does. That changes his whole perspective. It's why he takes in that sushi. It's why he's so kind of Kyoka. Like, everything, it all makes sense. Like, Dazai's whole change of character because his friend died, and those were his last words. Neither good nor evil means much to you, I know. But that at least make you a little bit better. He's like, how do you know that for sure? Of course I know. I know better than anyone. Because I'm your friend. And that little smile, and the thing where his hand slips and he grabs the bandage and he rips it out. My one question is that when he takes the hand away, the bandages fall off of Dazai's eye, and there's nothing there that seems out of the ordinary. Like, nothing seems out of the ordinary. His hand slips and the bandage comes out, and his face is normal. So I'm like, was Dazai injured over his eye, or is that there for another reason? Don't spoil me. If we find out in the anime, don't spoil me. But that moment was really curious. Like, the animation was gorgeous in that moment. But I was just like, interesting. And then, yeah, 2 weeks later, here's the unanswered questions. That cat is still around in this. The cat's still there. But I'm not sure why. Like, everybody's been like, watch the cat. And he's like, I didn't think a heavyweight in the ministry would be drinking alone in a cheap bar. How lonesome, Chief Tanida. And Dazai has his mask pulled up, his cheerful mask. And they're drinking sake together. So Dazai's been underground the last 2 weeks. Looking for a new job. And I like this establishment. So this is 4 years ago. And Tanida tells him that he has to stay underground for 2 more years to clean his slate, to get everybody off his trail. And then he says he might have a job for the gifted, the Academy of Defense. So that means he's been with Kunikita and them for 2 years. So that's the timeline. He's been with Kunikita and the others for 2 years, and he was in hiding for 2 years to clean his slate. And what he was doing during those 2 years is anybody's guess, but I like this cat is just there. Interesting. And then he pulls out the fan, and he's like, an armed organization of gifted individuals that take on cases that are in the legal gray zones and are untouchable by civil workers. And then the company's president is a man of integrity, and you may find alignment in what you wish. And that little zoom in of Dazai being that smile of Dazai where he's just like, it's the most pure thing I've ever seen in my life. So, yeah. Yep. No ED. We just get next time, episode 17, Three's Company Conflict. You guys. That was so good. That was so good. It was wonderful. It was so good. I'm really sad the flashback is over, but that was an amazing amount of character development for Dazai. I'm so glad we got to meet Oda. As short-lived as it was, he was an amazing character. I'm glad we've got a little bit of info on Natsumi, a little bit of info of him being a writer and being the guy that got the business permit for the agency. So he clearly works for Special Ops or is connected to them. We got a little bit more with Mori and his whole dynamic and his whole means of which I'm assuming Mori was okay with letting Dazai go because Mori had said, in 4 to 5 years Dazai's probably going to try to kill me and could kill me. So I could see Mori being upset that Dazai left, but I could also see him being like, well, that means I'm still in charge. So, and one guy isn't going to stop us. So, and then since Oda's dead, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to know, so Ango's still alive. That means Ango's back with the Special Ops. So I'm curious to know if we'll meet Ango again. Don't spoil me. But that'll be interesting if we meet him again in the present timeline. But yeah, basically just like in Oda and Dazai's real life selves, Dazai blames the critics for killing Oda. And in this it was like, yeah, Oda died because of his own association that he was going to get out of. I hate that he's dead. That's so sad. But so yeah, it's going to be weird. These last 4 episodes, we've just been doing this flashback arc, so it's going to be weird getting back to business as usual. It's going to be back because there's been humor in these last 4 episodes, don't get me wrong, but the tone shift has been very, very noticeable. So I'm wondering, is it going to be jarring going back to the present timeline where things are a little bit more goofy, or is that tone of being more serious going to kind of spill over into this? I don't know. But the fact that we get motivation, reasoning why Dazai does the things that he does is very, very good. I'm so happy we finally got that. And then gotten these new characters, gotten the Special Ops out of the way. We know about Mori's strategies, Akutagawa's past, like all these things have connected. And now I'm really curious going into the future, seeing how they're all going to tie in. Oh my gosh, you guys. It's so good. I loved it. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction. I am curious to know your thoughts down below. But yeah, this was a wonderful episode, and I'm as sad as I am that the flashback arc is over. I am excited to see what all we do now with present Dazai and the rest of the agency. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I will be back next week with episode 5 of season 2 of Bungo Stray Dogs. Bye.